Welcome to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm Melissa King, your podcast host, certified master health coach, certified personal trainer, and founder of Wellness Abundance Coaching. The purpose of this podcast is to share healthy lifestyle tips to empower you to design the abundant life you want and deserve. I'll chat with inspiring people who have built a strong foundation to build a life they love. I believe we all have the power within ourselves to create wellness abundance in all areas of our life. We simply need to find the courage within ourselves to take action. Our vision for this podcast is to help you create wellness abundance in your life with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. Grab your favorite beverage and enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I'm so excited about today's episode because it is part 2 of a 3-part series on fitness, nutrition, and recovery with your body. And this is actually, so I love fitness, I love working out, I love creating workouts for people and for group fitness classes. It's something I'm very passionate about. And I also love eating. Oh my gosh, eating is so good. I love really, really great, delicious, flavorful, satisfying food. So now I am totally a big proponent of really creating meals that you truly enjoy and not eating foods just because you feel like you have to or they're considered to be superfoods. Okay. I'm not that picky of an eater, but there are a few things that I just will not eat, even though they are very nutrient dense and I know that they're really good for me. For example, liver. I will not eat liver plain, just as it is. I've tried it before and I was gagging, like literally gagging, and I was like, never again. So I got creative and found other ways to get some liver occasionally into my diet. And you don't need a lot of liver, by the way. But anyways, I digress. But I'm a big proponent in just eating what you love, finding meals, finding recipes that you really, truly enjoy eating. It shouldn't be, your meals, you should look forward to your meals. When you're hungry and your body's craving nutrients, calories, energy, you should look forward to it. You should be like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to eat this delicious meal because number one, it tastes good. And maybe number two, you're enjoying it with a family member or your whole family or friends, coworkers, anything. Or you're just having a nice quiet meal by yourself. That's okay too. You know, I always look forward to, which doesn't happen very often, but the nights when Scott will go do his own thing and I'm on my own for dinner, I'm always like, oh my gosh, okay, what kind of really delicious meal can I prepare for myself? So I look forward to that. So, and I know food could sometimes be, in a way, a little burdensome to some people. I know Scott brings this up on occasion, like, oh man, if we didn't have to eat, like we'd be able to get so much more done, or we'd be able to do other things. And because it's just one more decision that you need to make. And I get that perspective, but really kind of flipping the switch because we have to eat to stay alive, right? So today I want to talk about, first of all, eating with your cycle. And second of all, really the benefits and the reason why you should really, when you create a fitness routine and it's like a strength training routine, it has some cardio, some low level cardio, maybe some high intensity interval training where you get your heart rate up high for a very short period of time, whatever it is. So you need to make sure that you replenish the carbohydrates and the fats and everything that your body burns during those workouts. So you want to make sure when after your body's depleted from a workout that you refill it and that you replenish it. So, and there is a specific strategy that you could find. There's so many different ways out there. Like there's a concept called carb cycling, which I'm not going to get into that now. But there's carb cycling, there's eating high fat, there's low carb, there's moderate protein, low protein, high protein, whatever it is. So my general rule of thumb for myself and my clients is to don't worry about whether it's high protein, moderate protein. I'm going to talk about protein and the benefits of it in a minute. So don't get me wrong, protein is important, fats are important, carbohydrates are important to some extent. But really, I really encourage my clients, just focus on whole foods, focus on eliminating as many processed foods as possible within reason, because if there is one specific processed food that really isn't doing you any harm right now and you just eat it on occasion, I'm always like, go for it. Just do it. Just eat it. Okay. But that's something also that you need to figure out for yourself. And when you, like with my clients, when I'm working with them, it's always about it's always having a conversation and kind of brainstorming ideas or not necessarily ideas, but like really digging deep. Well, why do I crave this processed food? Like, what is it about this processed food that I really enjoy? And really do a deep dive and then learn okay, this is something that I truly enjoy and I don't want to eliminate it. Or, you know what? Now that we're having this conversation, I really don't need this processed food. I had a client years ago and he had bread at every meal. And he wanted to experiment with keto, but he's like, I don't know how to get rid of the bread, Melissa. How do I do that? So we had a whole conversation about what is it about the bread that you like? And it ended up by the end of our coaching session, he realized that he only had bread with his meals because that's what he had growing up. His mom always served him and his brother bread growing up at every meal. So he just didn't know any different, basically. And then he just eliminated the bread once he realized that. And he's like, all right, done. And it was such a really great coaching session and a really amazing aha moment for my client. And it really was a game changer. So that's one of the benefits of working with a health and fitness coach like myself, is you get to have those conversations. And as health and fitness coaches, we know exactly what type of questions to ask to really help you dig deep and get to an answer. So, okay, I digress a little bit. So really focus on whole nutrient dense foods. So what does that look like? I'm going to dive into phases of your cycle in a minute, but I want to just clarify what whole foods are, because it's amazing to me how often, because of marketing from cereal companies, for example, people really don't know what a whole food is. So I'm going to explain the definition of a whole food. So a whole food is something that either comes from the ground or comes from an animal, basically. So veggies, like starchy and non-starchy veggies. Starchy veggies would be like a lot of your root vegetables. So potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, carrots, anything that really comes from the ground, the root vegetables, those can be a little bit high in carbs. Now beans, okay? Beans, or also known as legumes, those are technically a whole food. I won't get into the whole details and what beans, the benefits and the pros and cons of eating beans are. But if you don't eat legumes, because I know keto and paleo eating styles don't recommend eating beans. But if you want to eat legumes, go for it. If you enjoy them, go for it. There are ways to do it to where they're not as high carb and they're a little bit more nutrient dense, a little bit better for your body. So, and then the non-starchy carbs are like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, onions, tomatoes, those kind of like lettuce, like the leafy greens. Those are the vegetables that grow kind of above ground. So that's a great rule of thumb. And then some healthy fats and proteins. Now, I want to actually clarify, because I'll dive into fats right now, since this just popped into my head. So when I say eliminate mostly processed foods, what I meant to say was the highly processed foods, because foods or fats like avocado oil, olive oil, those healthier oils, coconut oils, they are processed to some extent. But the benefits of like avocado oil and olive oil, coconut oil, lard, for example, is those are very minimally processed, and they're usually cold pressed, so they're not heated. Because what happens, like the vegetable oils, canola oils, sunflower oils, safflower oils, those are all processed using heat. And what it does is it damages the molecules in it, and then we consume it, and then it damages inside of our body. So that's why you really want to kind of avoid those. But like avocado oil, just be sure it's real avocado oil. Same thing with olive oil. So you still want to kind of proceed with caution. Primal Kitchen is a go-to brand in our home, and we love it. I trust the brand, and I'm very, very, very familiar with the brand. And so I know I'm 100% confident that their avocado oil and olive oil are processed, cold pressed, and very, very minimally, and not with heat. So those are some fats, some example of some healthy fats. And then let's dive into animal products. So animal products would be any kind of muscle meat, tendons, if you want to get that extra collagen, like bone marrow. So chicken breast, wild caught fish, preferably wild caught. You don't want farmed, because sometimes they treat the ocean water with the farmed, and they give the fish like all these like antibiotics and all this stuff that you don't want to be putting in your body. Because remember, whatever that animal eats, when you consume that animal product, you're putting that in your body. Okay, so just think about that and remember that. And then just focus on mostly grass-fed and grass-finished if you can. This is not like, oh my God, I have to have grass-fed and grass-finished, and I have to have wild-caught. Just, use your best judgment and go about how you feel, how you're feeling internally, and everything. Just use your best judgment with it. But this is also another conversation that you and I can have during a coaching session, is kind of talk through this. Because there is a way to really focus on eating whole foods within a budget. I know people say, oh, I can't eat whole foods, Melissa, because it's so expensive. And the reality is, it's actually not expensive if you think about it and if you break it down. But that's like something we could discuss on an individual basis. Maybe that's something I'll talk about later on in the podcast down the road. And eggs is a really, really, really great. Eggs are one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. So we buy organic pasture raised, but if you can't get that, that's okay. A lot of even other eggs, like the more affordable ones, do have omega-3s added to them, which is great, which is just an added benefit to it. But focus on pasture raised if possible. If it's not possible, don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Just focus on like eating whole foods. Okay. And then, so now let's dive into the phases of your cycle. So the first phase, just to kind of reiterate what I talked about last week. So the beginning of your cycle is the first day of menstruation. So the day you start bleeding, that's day one of your cycle. So when you're menstruating, when you're in this phase of your cycle, it's super important to really pay attention to your cravings. I know for me personally, I crave more red meat during this time because of the loss of iron. So I'm just craving red meat. So much red meat. And so I'll just, sometimes Scott will be like, all right, I'll make ribeyes for us. And I will eat the entire 10-ounce ribeye sometimes because my body just needs that extra iron and also the extra protein too. So during this phase, this is again the phase where our hormones are at their lowest and our energy levels are high. So depending on where you're at, like if you're having some extra blood loss, take it easy. If you're feeling a little weak, tired, you're feeling that fatigue, just take it easy and everything, and just make sure you're replenishing your body with foods that are high in iron. There are, I've heard that beets are high in iron. So if you want to focus more on plant-based iron, then beets are good. I'm sure there are some other vegetables out there that are high in iron as well. So this first phase, you really want to make sure that you are getting enough protein and getting enough iron. And then, so the first 2 weeks, remember it's the follicular phase. So that's the beginning of menstruation towards ovulation. Now, if you're not familiar with the term insulin sensitive, I'm going to explain that real quick. So what this is, insulin sensitivity is your body's ability to kind of move glucose throughout your body, which is a good thing. You want to be more insulin sensitive. So this first 2 weeks, the follicular phase of your cycle, you're more insulin sensitive. Now, just to be perfectly clear, just to reiterate like I did last week, everyone's different. So this is why it's super important to really either keep a food journal, at least for 1 month. Just do it and kind of see how you feel. Even do it for multiple months, because if you're having like some stressful situations at work or in your personal life, that can affect it too. So I recommend really tracking all this stuff during a month where like your personal life, your work life is going smoothly for the most part, and your stress levels are just normal, if you will. So this first phase, you can eat more starchy vegetables. So you can eat more of the sweet potatoes, the white potatoes, anything like that. If you want to indulge a little bit in sugar, I say go for it during this phase of your cycle. Because this will really, your body will process the carbohydrates much more efficiently. So then remember, after ovulation, it's the luteal phase. So I'm take a peek at my, so it's the luteal phase. And then, so this is when your hormones are going up, your energy levels may be dropping a little bit. And this is when like premenstrual symptoms appear. So you could have fatigue and all that stuff, breast tenderness, moodiness. And this is the period of your cycle when you may be more insulin resistant. So why this is important to be mindful of is, so our bodies, when we eat a meal, so let's say we have a side of French fries and then with a burger, okay? So we have these French fries that are cooked in probably not so healthy vegetable oil or canola oil or soybean oil. And we have that, and then we have a burger. So we have the saturated fat from the red meat, which isn't necessarily bad, okay? Let me just put that out there. And a burger with the bun, okay? So you eat all that. So you're gonna eat all that through the digestion process with your body. Your body is going to tackle the carbohydrates first for burning. So it's gonna burn the potatoes that you ate, and the bun, okay, the bread that you ate, okay? And then when your body's like, okay, I'm done, I've burned enough calories, I've replenished it, we've burned them off, but we have these extra calories from the fat, from the burger. You know what? Let's just store those for later. And your body stores it as triglycerides. Triglycerides are the storage form of fat, and this can cause weight gain. So this is why it's important to be mindful of this during this phase of your cycle. So one thing that I've been doing when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, duh, like this is amazing, great information to have. And so what I did is I don't eat a lot of bread anyways, just because it doesn't really make me, I don't feel good with it, eating it anyways. So I'd rather feel good than have a few minutes of indulgence most of the time. So what I will do is the first half of my cycle, if I'm craving some like sweet potatoes or white potatoes, I'll eat those. And then during the second half, I'll scale way back on eating starchy carbohydrates. So I'll focus more on like eggs and healthy proteins like chicken. We do wild caught salmon on occasion. I'll do bison. Bison's a really great lean red meat. So if you want that iron, but you don't want all the extra fat, because I know, I get it that sometimes with me, eating too much saturated fat, like if I eat too much bacon in one sitting, or sometimes too much a steak that's a little too fatty for me, I will get the worst stomach aches. So bad. So just know your body. But if you want a little bit leaner red meat option, bison is a great go-to. Bison are always grass-fed. So just that's amazing as well. Okay, so that's what I do. So I'll just focus on some healthy fats. I'll eat avocados, put avocado oil on my salads, and then I'll eat, just a bunch of non-starchy veggies, lots of broccoli, greens, and then also, just some healthy animal protein like chicken, fish, steak, things like that during the second half of my cycle, and kind of steer clear of the fruit as much as possible, because that's sugar, that's simple sugar. And so also another great thing about vegetables are they're considered complex carbs. So that means that your body digests them slowly, which is what you want, because if you're eating food like the highly processed food and super high sugary foods, even fruit, some fruits, then your body's going to digest it really fast, and your glucose levels are going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's what you don't want. You want very steady glucose levels. That's what you want. So, and it all starts with insulin. So when you're insulin sensitive, you can eat more of that and your body will process it more efficiently. When you're more insulin resistant during the second half of your cycle, your body has a little bit harder time processing it. So, okay. Now, also, just to be clear, I know like when PMS occurs, like I know I get so many weird cravings. If you're, raise your hand if that's you. Yes, that's totally me. Then if you want to steer clear of the sugar cravings, focus on eating more healthy fats and protein, and that will kind of train your body. That will really mitigate the cravings and help your body be like, you know what, never mind, I'm good. I don't need that sugar. I don't need that dark chocolate. I don't need that cinnamon roll. I don't need that XYZ baked good. Okay. So just a little tip, focus on healthy fats and healthy proteins. Okay. And then the cycle just starts all over again. It's fun being a woman, huh? So one cool thing too about eating whole foods is it really does help minimize your premenstrual symptoms. So I noticed also when I started eating like this, eating with my cycle, I noticed I slept better, because sometimes like a week or two, like a week before I start my cycle again, so like the last week of my cycle, I have a hard time sleeping. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, won't be able to fall back asleep. And this is even when I judge this or analyze it when I'm not extra stressed for whatever reason. If just my stress levels are normal and healthy for me, then, and I can't sleep, I'm like, it's got to be PMS. But I have been sleeping so much better. And I've also talked to other women who I've shared this information with. They're like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing, because I always wake up, I always get insomnia. And this will kind of help mitigate those symptoms. And then also when you start your cycle and you're bleeding, like if you have cramps or anything like that, that will focusing on eating whole nutrient dense foods will really help minimize that, staying away from sugar and gluten as much as possible. And some other culprits, which this was a culprit for me, is dairy. Dairy can be very inflammatory for some people. It is for me. I don't eat it anymore at all. I've learned the hard way that dairy my body just does not process dairy very well at all. Even the lactose-free dairy, I've tried that. It was not fun. So really, if you need to, avoid dairy, and just do an experiment. Just do an experiment, see how you feel. And then you have to weigh, like, is it worth it if I eat it, or is it not worth it? For me, I know I've learned over the last almost year now, it is not worth it for me. So anyways, so I'd love to hear your feedback. Comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to have a conversation more in depth, have a more personal concept. I do offer free consultations, so I'm happy to chat with you about it and then go from there. So thanks so much for watching and or listening. I appreciate you. And next week is part 3, recovery. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorites. So, okay, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. The Wellness Abundance podcast is sponsored by Wellness Abundance Coaching. At Wellness Abundance Coaching, we help women lose weight effortlessly and minimize anxiety with clarity, empowerment, and flexibility. We offer one-on-one and group health coaching, corporate wellness programs, and on-demand fitness videos. To learn more about how we can help you become the healthiest version of yourself and to schedule a time to chat with us, visit melissaking.net.